The courtroom air was thick, almost suffocating. Every sound, the shuffle of papers, the ticking of the clock, felt louder than it should. At the front table sat Naomi Fields, her posture straight but her heart shattered beneath the surface. She wasn't here because she wanted to be. She was here because her husband had decided their love had an expiration date. Across the aisle sat Ethan Fields, the man she'd built her life around for the past 14 years. He sat comfortably, leaning toward the woman beside him, Kayla Moore, his new love, his public betrayal. Kayla's manicured hand rested on his arm, her lips curved in a small, triumphant smirk. Naomi's eyes burned. She didn't know if it was anger, grief, or just exhaustion from pretending to be okay for so long. The judge hadn't even entered yet, and already her hands were trembling around the edges of her divorce papers. It was hard to believe that once upon a time, Ethan had been her world. They met in Atlanta, both working late nights at a downtown restaurant, she as a waitress, he as a dishwasher with big dreams. They used to talk for hours after their shifts, dreaming about a future together. Naomi had believed in him when no one else did, believed he'd become the man he said he wanted to be. And for a while, he was. Until he wasn't. Now, here they were, dividing the pieces of what used to be a life, like strangers fighting over scraps. When Judge Raymond Cole entered, the courtroom rose. He was a tall man with silver hair and eyes that carried the weight of too many broken families. The gavel struck once. Court is now in session for the final hearing in the case of Fields versus Fields, he said firmly. Naomi's stomach twisted at the sound of her married name. For a moment, she wanted to run. Judge Cole looked up from his notes. Both parties present voluntarily? Yes, Your Honor, Ethan said, his tone casual. Naomi hesitated. Yes, Your Honor. Very well, the judge replied. We'll begin by reviewing the agreed-upon terms of divorce. The court assistant began reading the details: division of property, savings accounts, custody arrangements for their 11-year-old daughter, Ariana. Naomi tried to focus, but her mind wandered. Every sentence felt like another nail in the coffin of their past. Then Ethan interrupted. Your Honor, I'd like to request shared custody. Naomi's head snapped up. Shared custody? You barely see her now. You're always traveling with her. Kayla crossed her arms. Maybe if you weren't so bitter, you'd see that Ethan just wants to be a good father. The room went silent. Judge Cole's gaze turned sharp. Miss, please state your name. Kayla Moore, she said proudly. Ethan's fiancée. Naomi's heart stopped for a beat. Fiancé, she whispered, her voice trembling. We're not even divorced yet. Ethan looked away, pretending to adjust his tie. The judge cleared his throat. Miss Moore, this is not your proceeding. One more interruption and I'll have you removed. Kayla sat back, muttering something under her breath. Naomi stared down at her hands. Her wedding ring was gone, but the mark it left still pressed into her skin, a ghost of what used to be. Judge Cole continued, we'll now proceed to finalize signatures unless there are any objections. Naomi could feel everyone's eyes on her. She wanted to get it over with, but something inside her, some small, defiant part of her heart, refused to stay silent. Your Honor, she said softly, may I say something before we sign? The judge nodded. Go ahead, Mrs. Fields. Naomi stood slowly. Her voice was unsteady at first, but every word carried the weight of 14 years of love, sacrifice, and pain. I've spent my entire adult life loving one man. I was there when Ethan had nothing, when we slept on a mattress on the floor, when I worked 2 jobs so he could start his business. I believed in him when no one else did. And when things got hard, I stayed. But now I see that sometimes, love isn't enough when one person stops trying. Her voice broke slightly. So today, when I sign these papers, I'm not just letting go of a marriage. I'm letting go of the woman who begged to be loved. I'm choosing peace over pain. Even the bailiff looked away, blinking hard. Ethan shifted in his seat, his confidence faltering. Kayla stared at Naomi with narrowed eyes, but even she couldn't disguise the discomfort creeping across her face. Naomi sat down. The room felt still, reverent almost. Ethan grabbed the pen, signed his name quickly, and pushed the paper toward her without a word. Naomi took a deep breath, reaching for the pen, ready to sign away her past. But then, Judge Cole raised a hand. Before you do, Mrs. Fields, I need to address something important. Ethan frowned. What's wrong? Judge Cole's tone hardened. Mr. Fields, our financial review shows you opened a separate business account 6 weeks ago under a company not listed in your declaration, Eastline Logistics. Ethan froze. That's not relevant to. It's highly relevant, the judge interrupted. Because you transferred over $80,000 from your joint account into that business account right before this hearing. That's a direct violation of marital asset disclosure. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Kayla's face went pale. Judge Cole's voice grew colder. If this was an attempt to conceal assets, Mr. Fields, the court can impose serious penalties, including full forfeiture of remaining joint property. Naomi stared at Ethan, her breath catching. For a moment, she felt nothing, no sadness, no rage, just clarity. Ethan stammered, I can explain, Your Honor. I suggest you do, Judge Cole replied sharply. Because until this is resolved, this divorce cannot proceed. The gavel came down hard, echoing through the room. Court is adjourned until further notice. Naomi sat motionless, her hands folded in her lap. Ethan's face had gone ghostly, Kayla whispering angrily beside him. For the first time in months, Naomi didn't feel small. She didn't feel broken. She felt powerful. Maybe the universe wasn't silent after all. Maybe, just maybe, justice had been listening the whole time. When the gavel struck, the sound seemed to echo forever. The courtroom buzzed with whispers as Ethan's face drained of color. Naomi sat still, watching him with calm eyes that had seen too much to be shaken now. Judge Cole rose from the bench. This court will reconvene once we verify the full extent of Mr. Fields' undisclosed assets. Until then, all financial activity between both parties is frozen. He gave Naomi a small nod before leaving the bench. It wasn't pity, it was respect. Naomi gathered her documents quietly. She didn't look at Ethan, not when Kayla hissed at him under her breath, not when he muttered something she couldn't quite hear. For once, she didn't need to fight or explain herself. The truth was doing that for her. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. Ethan's company had gained some public attention lately. Microphones pointed toward them, flashes lit the steps. Mr. Fields, any comment on the judge's accusation? One reporter asked. Ethan kept his head down, shoving past them with Kayla close behind. Naomi walked slower, her heels clicking on the marble steps, her daughter's photo clutched tightly in her bag. When a reporter turned to her, asking, Mrs. Fields, how do you feel about today's hearing, she simply said, relieved. It was the only word she could find. She drove home in silence, the afternoon sunlight pouring through her windshield. Atlanta looked different that day, not smaller, not lonelier, but wider. Like maybe there was room for her again. When she got home, Ariana was sitting at the kitchen table doing homework. She looked up and smiled shyly. How did it go, Mom? Naomi hesitated, then smiled back. It went the way it was supposed to. Ariana nodded slowly. Does that mean Dad's not coming back? Naomi sat beside her, brushing her daughter's curls from her forehead. No, baby. It means we're going to be okay, even if he doesn't. That night, after tucking Ariana into bed, Naomi sat on the porch with a cup of tea. The wind was soft, carrying the faint sounds of the city. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel the weight of someone else's choices pressing on her. She remembered the woman she used to be, bright-eyed, full of faith, laughing too loud and dreaming too big. Somewhere between bills, work, and heartbreak, that woman had gotten buried. But now, she could feel her breathing again. The next week, court resumed. Ethan showed up alone this time. His once pressed suit looked wrinkled, his face tired. Kayla hadn't come. Word around the courthouse was that she'd left him once the truth about the hidden money came out. Judge Cole entered with a stack of documents. After reviewing the financial disclosures, he began, "It appears Mr. Fields transferred a total of $110,000 into an unreported account. Evidence suggests intent to conceal assets." Ethan's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. "Your Honor, my client." Judge Cole raised a hand. "I've heard enough. Mr. Fields, this court will be awarding full ownership of the marital home, joint savings, and all remaining assets to Mrs. Fields as compensation. Additionally, you'll be responsible for full child support payments as determined by the court." Ethan's mouth fell open. "What? That's not fair." The judge's tone was sharp. "What's unfair is lying under oath. You made your choices. Now you live with them." Naomi sat still, her heart pounding, hands clasped tightly in her lap. It wasn't triumph she felt, it was closure. When the gavel came down, it sounded softer this time. Like peace. After court, Ethan approached her in the hallway. He looked older somehow, like regret had finally caught up to him. "Naomi," he said quietly, "I never meant for it to get this bad. I didn't think you'd fight back." She looked at him for a long moment, her eyes steady but kind. "That's the problem, Ethan. You never thought I would. You forgot who I was." He nodded slowly, tears brimming in his eyes, but she turned away before he could say more. Outside, the sky was overcast, a slow drizzle starting to fall. Naomi lifted her face to the rain, letting it wash over her. It didn't feel like sadness, it felt like renewal. Months passed. She kept her last name for her daughter's sake, but everything else she changed. New apartment, new job at a community center helping single mothers, new sense of self-worth that no amount of betrayal could ever take again. Sometimes, late at night, she'd still think of Ethan, not with anger, but with understanding. People lose themselves sometimes. She had too. The difference was, she'd found her way back. One afternoon, Ariana came home from school with a drawing, two stick figures, hand in hand, standing under a bright sun. "It's us," she said proudly. "Because we're happy now." Naomi smiled, her eyes soft. "Yeah, baby. We are." And she meant it. The pain had once felt like the end of everything. But standing there, watching her daughter laugh, feeling her own heart beat freely again, Naomi finally understood, sometimes losing someone isn't the tragedy. Sometimes, it's the beginning of finding yourself. And as the sun dipped below the skyline, Naomi whispered to herself, "Thank you, God, for the strength to let go." Because that day in court wasn't the end of her story. It was the start of her freedom.